All right, welcome. It's Jeff Heggie of Jeff Heggie Coaching, and I'm excited today to have Derek Dickow with me. Now, Derek is a lot of things. He's a businessman, he's a communication expert, he's a speaker. The thing that really caught my attention right now with Derek is he's an expert in networking. And that's always something important, but especially during this pandemic, I think it's been something that's even more important. So Derek, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to join you and your audience today to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. And it's something that I've been focused on for the last about 15 years of my professional career, which is in relationship building. And as a political consultant to candidates at every level of government, I've developed a very specific expertise, I'd call it, in facilitating introductions to two parties who can benefit from knowing each other. Now, it's happened in politics, in fundraising, it's happened in philanthropy and in business deals, and trying to bring people together to help provide outcomes that are win-win for everyone involved. So I really enjoy the work. I focus on the relationship building part of it. It is the core of my business. And over the last few years, I've really decided to kind of go all in and share this expertise with the masses. And so I'm really appreciative to be on the program with you today, Jeff. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It is such an important thing right now. And, you know, as business people, we know how important our network is. But I think over the last year and a half, I've seen a lot of people focus on their current networks. You know, they've got the people they know, they have their Zoom meetings, but they're not building relationships. They're not growing that network. So maybe talk a little bit of what you've seen over the last year and a half on where people have been falling short, and maybe, you know, how do we go about that? You know, if fortunately we're starting to get more face-to-face and things happening, but I think we're going to see a trend of a lot more remote work than we used to see. So how do we make this happen?
I think it's a great point and a great place to start with our discussion today. Having all of us having to deal with the pandemic and closing down businesses and closing down our face-to-face interactions. Events went away. Opportunities to meet and shake hands and press the flesh certainly disappeared for a lot of people. And for some people that was okay, and for others it was really a challenge to deal with. And so we talk about networking, and people have this insincere approach to networking, or they have a real negative connotation to it. They think of networking as, all right, I'm going to put a suit and tie on, I'll put my name tag out, I'll grab a whole bunch of business cards from my office, and I'm going to just paper the event with as many business cards as I can. And if you think of networking that way, yes, it is incredibly insincere and just a horrible way to approach driving personal relationships and really connecting with people. When I think of networking, I think of offering and giving to others without any expectation. And so you can do, and what we've learned in the last 18 months, Jeff, is that we can network with people in a variety of ways, leveraging all the assets available to us through Zoom technology, the phone, which a lot of people look at as a 800-pound gorilla sometimes, but sometimes just picking up the phone, sending out an email, focusing intentional on building relationships with your clients, referral sources, and people that you want to know. For a lot of people, the pandemic has been a fantastic time to reconnect with people and to be intentional about that. And then for others, it's just been tremendously challenging for people that are used to being social and being in those types of environments. But I think as we start to see us moving forward here, we will see a hybrid of networking opportunities. And I think for people to think about it a little bit more intentionally about, you know, how they can outreach and focus on that, I think that will be tremendously helpful as we move forward.
All right, let's start with a few of techniques, I guess, if we want to call it that. But where do we start? How do we identify the people we should be networking with?
I love that question. It is 101, thinking about where do I go from here? And I always tell my clients that if you drop me off in the middle of Asia or someplace where I've never been before, within 30 days, I would have a good handle on who's who and who's what, because I spend a significant amount of time thinking about my goals. thinking about my why and thinking about what's important to me in my business, both personally and professionally. So once you understand what your goals are in business, what you're after, then you start to think about, all right, who are the people that can help me achieve and attain those goals? And that's what I do with my clients. We start by thinking about the why and what they're focused on, what their goals are, and then we start to think about, all right, where do we want to invest our time? What type of nonprofits are important for us to be on? What type of charities, what type of political campaigns might we lend some time to or volunteer to or write a check to? So thinking about professional trade associations, cultural institutions, sports is also a great way and a great place to meet good people, like-minded people, of course. So thinking about first the why and what you're after and what your goals are, and then identifying the right type of events that are helpful to meeting the right people.
Excellent. Now, once we've established that, I mean, some people are a lot more outgoing than others. How do we go about networking? And I guess looking at this in two different aspects. One, if we can get to an event, if we can get to a sport, whatever it might be, or if we've identified someone that we feel like we should connect to, but we need to create an opportunity. How do we go about that?
Well, let's start with the latter part of that, because that's been a focus of mine for the past 15 years in my business, which is outreach to very successful people that don't necessarily know me, probably never heard of me, but that will take my call, because what I do and what I advise my clients to do is to invest time upfront researching the prospect, researching the potential mentor or potential someone that you want to do, referral source that you want to do business with, and demonstrating to them upfront in that first 15 seconds that you have a call or in the opening of the email that you've done some research on them. You add a personal touch to the conversation by mentioning some of the things that you've read about them. You know, I've gone so far as in my outreach, reading books that people have written just to get to know their mindset a little bit more and to be able to reference it when I reach them and say, look, I've actually read your book before I picked up the phone. I wanted you to know that I take this moment and this time your time very seriously. And I'd like to demonstrate with you some things that are important to me that I'd like to follow up on. And then I'll go through the cadence of what that might be. I have it all written out in advance. And, you know, I'm spending, depending on the type of prospect that person is, an hour up to 5 hours sometimes to really doing a deep dive. Some people call it cyber stalking. But essentially, I'm trying to learn as much as I can about people in advance of picking up the phone, because if they're that important to my business, then I need to show them that I'm different than the hundreds of calls that they get from other people in just trying to solicit them or in trying to sell them something. I'm trying to build a deep relationship, and that's exactly what I show my clients how to do.
That definitely makes a difference. I mean, I got a email yesterday, someone proposing they were doing an article on top female entrepreneurs and wanted to know if I was interested in being involved in it. I said, well, one, I'm not a female. So yeah, the research part definitely will pay off. And you know, I think that really does go a long way. And when you can show that you're interested, and you know, especially if they've got a book and you've read a book, that definitely goes a long way. Now, what if you've got that person you want to network with, you want to build a relationship with, and they're hard to get to? How do you get by the gatekeepers? How do you get to that person?
Yeah, so the type of people that I'm after in my personal business and in political fundraising, for example, sometimes they're tremendously challenging to reach. In some cases, they don't have one gatekeeper; they have three. So I have prospected the type of business leaders, billionaires, right, that have sometimes 2 or 3 executive assistants on the team, and their whole job is to insulate and shield the big boss from solicitors. So you have to stand out from the rest, and there's ways to approach that depending on who that prospect is. And what you're looking for in that research is to identify 1, maybe 2 or 3 either common threads, common ties that you can build upon a relationship, or to offer them something within that 15 seconds. Maybe you've read about a foundation or a charity that they and their spouse have created. You know, I've not met a successful person in this country that doesn't have some sort of charity or philanthropic cause that they're not passionate about. I like to learn a little bit more about that, to understand why they give to that particular charity. Why did they start that foundation? And so sometimes I'll do a deep dive on that organization. Do they have an annual gala coming up that maybe I could write a check to, either to sponsor or to buy a ticket? Or if I'm not in a position to write a check, perhaps I could contact them and volunteer my time to help set up the event physically, right? Actually go to the event early, work with the event organizers, and demonstrate to them that this relationship is that important to me that I'm willing to invest my time up front as my currency to say that I'm real. So sometimes I know we've been in a situation right now where there hasn't been a lot of events, but that's just one example of what I would do to reach somebody that's very high level. And then, you know, it's whatever it takes. If my why is strong enough and if the goals that I'm trying to accomplish mean a lot to me, you know, we do whatever it takes to reach people. Sometimes it could take 6 months. Sometimes it could take an entire year, but you have to demonstrate a relentless pursuit of your goals with people. And I think the more you're serious about it, the more a high level business leader will say, okay, this person's been after me for 6 months. They're obviously not going to stop. They've only asked me for about 15 minutes of their time. And all right, let's give them the 15 minutes. So it takes time, it takes a concerted effort, and it takes a relentless approach to reach, depending on how high level that person is. And the more serious you are, the more they're willing to give you their time. At least that's what I found.
And once you are given that time, how do you maximize that opportunity so that it isn't a one and gone?
Yeah. So what I do is I lead with some information that I've read about them. I lead with empathy. I try to understand and ask some really good, thought-provoking, engaging questions that are, you know, and I never sell on the first date. That's what I like to call it. You know, there's transactional relationships which happen sometimes in business, but I'm not focused on those, and that's not what I advise my clients to do. As if it's a relationship is worth having, then it's worth having long term. And there's some people in my world that I've gone 3, 5, 10, in some cases 20 years where I haven't talked to people, and they start to see some of my material on LinkedIn and we connect with each other. And it's because we have that, it's very much, I change, and what I advise my clients to do is to literally change their orientation, to stop thinking about themselves personally and how they can advantage their business and their practice, but to start focusing on the prospect first. What are they after? What's important to them? And how can I add immeasurable value without any expectation? And when you have that type of mindset, you start to see people sort of gravitate to you because they're like, this person is not selling me. They're just trying to understand my position, what I'm after, what an ideal client looks like for me. Or maybe they're trying to help my philanthropic cause. I mean, all these things are some of the strategies and tips that I share with others that have been tremendously helpful. And I tell people, if it could work for me in politics, if you're offering a product or service, it can definitely work for you.
Great. Now let's talk a little bit about the live events. How do you go about being at a live event? What's the process of networking? I mean, maybe you're going to a specific live event, but there isn't a specific person that you went there to network with. How do you go about that networking process to make it most valuable?
Yeah, so the way to make a networking, your presence at a networking event most valuable is to, what I like to do is a couple of things. One is identify if you can get a hold of the attendee list. And again, let's say that you drop me in a town I've never been to, and this is an event that's new to me. I would still contact the event organizer in advance of the event. And sometimes the event organizers, they are the best people to work with because their only job is to ensure that the attendees have a good experience. So you contact the event organizer maybe a week or two in advance. You introduce yourself to them over the phone. tell them what your goals are, what you're after, and you ask them very plainly, who do you know that is attending the event that you think I should meet? And then they'll provide you maybe with 2 or 3 or 4 names. Now, what I like to do for events that I attend is I have a limit of only meeting 3 people. And I know that sounds kind of funky, right? What happens when you meet 3 people? Do you leave? The answer is no. But what I try to do is have 3 meaningful connections that I can establish at any event, whether it's an hour event or an all-day event. Now, when I meet the 4th person, I don't say, no, I got to go. You're after my 3rd person. But I try to focus on meeting 3 people, and then I'll pull some information on those 3 people in advance of the event. I'll let them know either by call or email that I'm attending the event, that I've done a little bit of research on them, and that I'd be honored to follow up and shake their hand formally and maybe ask a question or 2 in a 5-minute, what we call pull aside. So I'm only asking for 5 minutes at the event to formally shake their hand. I am not selling them anything in that 5 minutes. I'm just following up on a couple points of information that I think are helpful, that can help drive the conversation. And then I'm also asking them engaging questions. Then when that 5 minute comes up, I say, John, it was so great to meet you. Thanks for giving me those 5 minutes. Maybe I'll follow up with you in an email in a couple weeks, but just an honor to meet you. I shake their hand and then I move on. So I can attend a full day conference or a 3-hour networking event. I can get 3 meetings within 5 minutes each. So I can get all of my networking done in about 20 minutes at an event, and then I'm out. And so we can condense and make people's time more efficient and effective with that mentality of having a plan.
That's great. And, just to reiterate, contacting the event organizer is such a powerful tool as well. I've got actually an event this week, and just contacting the event organizer, all of a sudden I'm speaking at the event, which is a great opportunity. So yeah, that was a great opportunity for me to contact him and just find out more about it. Well, that's awesome. So what about longer term? Now you've met these people, you talked about at these live events, you meet someone, you say you might follow up in a couple of weeks or so. What about even longer term than that? Once you create that relationship, how do you build the relationship? How do you go about, if you are looking to sell something, when and how do you do that?
Yeah. So the rule of thumb is to find at least 2, maybe 3 opportunities to deposit some currency into that new relationship, and to demonstrate to them that you are a long-term thinker. No one is going to buy anything from us within that 30 seconds to 2 minutes that we meet them at an event. But what they do buy is your likability. And so if you're walking around the event and giving your business card to people before you get a chance to even shake a hand and understand what they do, well, then you're not networking, you're selling. And what I tell people all the time is stop selling and start solving. So by solving problems for a new prospect, or by asking the right questions and engaging and listening to understand rather than listening to respond, what you're doing with people is you're demonstrating, oh, this person is nice to speak with. They ask me good questions. They follow up with good questions. They pay attention to me. They're not making eye contact with me. And then, all of a sudden, there goes Larry walking around the event. I really want to talk to Larry. When can I get out of this conversation? No, you got to be focused on that person's goals. You got to be focused on learning about them. And when you do that, you start to demonstrate to people that they know you now, that they like talking to you because you ask good questions. And then it takes time to build that trust. And you build that trust over time through depositing currency into that new relationship. And there's 5 or 6 or 7 different ways that are high level that you can add some real high level value to a new contact. And that's what I show my clients how to do. You have to continuously add that value without any expectation of return, but understanding that I'm here to offer value, and that if something comes of it, it's going to be because I demonstrated to you that I'm worthy of your time and attention.
Great. How do I become the person others are seeking out to network with?
Yeah, that's a great one. How do you become the person others want to network with? is having a positive mindset and finding opportunities to add value to people as they come into your world. And the greatest way that I think you can do that is by making qualified introductions to two parties who can benefit from knowing each other. So in a live event, a lot of times I'll be talking to someone. They'll say, you know, I'm an attorney and I like to, my business practice is all in commercial real estate. And I'm advising my clients how to buy and sell. And then, you know, I might turn around at the event and I'm like, oh, John, you're a developer, right? You really got to meet Larry over here as you're developing your commercial real estate portfolio. Larry would be a fantastic addition to help provide you some legal counsel along the way. I say something nice about both parties, and then I exit and I move on, right? And I'm adding value to two people that can benefit from knowing each other with just a quick, positive, nice introduction. It's not super long. It's not anything other than me just listening well and then paying attention to what they're trying to accomplish and then making that introduction. I do it live, and I also do it via email. So a very formal way would be to do it via email. Same format, say something nice about person A, say something nice about person B, how they can benefit from knowing each other, and then I'm happy to make the introduction. Now, when I started out, I'll give you a fun example. I would have people ask me all the time, you know, who's a great limo driver or who's a good landscaper? And I would just share the contact and just send them the cell phone number for Tony, let's say, for example, and just, you know, here's his number. Then I said, you know, I could do this a little bit better. And what I do when I do it via text message is I'll connect both of them in a group chat, and I'll say something nice about person A and I'll say something nice about person B. It'll be very short and sweet and to the point, but people appreciate it a lot. And so that I take that extra step to say something nice about each person, I'm building value with both of them. And so that's one of the reasons why people enjoy to network with me or to call me about who are my best recommendations for X, Y, or Z. And it's why I'm sought after as an expert in this field.
It's incredible. Now, one of the things that I'm hearing over and over, regardless of the questions I'm asking you, is that the answers seem to come to give without anything expected in return. And I don't know, just add to that, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I go around and all I'm doing is taking from people, eventually people are going to say, that's enough, right? And my particular business as a political fundraiser, I mean, you can imagine there's only so much money to go around from the donor base. And so if all I'm doing is calling them every election cycle to solicit them for money, at some point they're not going to take my calls, right? So what I've developed is this mindset of, all right, I'm going to add value to every person I talk to. I'm going to treat every new contact like they could be my best friend and like they can write me the largest check. And when I walk into every relationship with that mindset, it just becomes easier and easier to help people along their journey. And somehow, some way, we've built a brand and a business out of it. And it's just something I love to do. And it's something that everyone can do in any area of their business that can benefit their career with that mindset of giving before taking.
Thank you. It's actually funny because on my other podcast, Daily Success Strategies, I just did a podcast that I titled, Do You Get Sent to Voicemail? Because there's, you know, what do you think when you see that number come up? Is that someone you want to talk to, or is it, oh, they're going to sell me again, they're going to pitch me again? I'm sending them to voicemail. Yeah. And when you can create those relationships, it makes such a difference. Now, I think one of the things that would be an important aspect of networking, and I've done it, and I know a lot of people do this, and just wondering if you have a secret that you share with your clients on this topic. When you're at a networking event, you get introduced to someone new you've never met before, you don't know their background, anything, and by the end of the introductory sentence, you've already forgot their name.
Yeah, happens all the time.
What's the secret to not doing that?
All right. What you bring up is a wonderful point of networking. And I think the most essential part is remembering people's names. And it is very funny, Jeff. I think that according to Dale Carnegie, and I have to agree with him on this, is our first name is the most incredible word in the history of the human language. And if we could have angels at the top of the mountain just saying Jeff, 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 Eric all day long, it would be music to our ears. And everyone is this way. We just love to be recognized by our names. And early on in my career, I might have said words like "hey," or I will tell you, the intentional approach to get the first name right is just an incredible way to start a relationship. Now, it won't ruin it, but it will only enhance it. So what I tell my clients all the time is to get comfortable remembering people's names. When you go to restaurants, be intentional about learning the server's name. So Rachel sits me down. I say, she says, can I take your order? I say, I'm sorry, what was your name? And she says, Rachel. Rachel, it's nice to meet you, Rachel. I'll have a black coffee. Thank you so much, Rachel. So what we're doing is repeating their name 3 times within the first 30 seconds that we get to meet them. And then throughout the course of the meal, you have other opportunities when they bring you more coffee, or when they bring you another water, or when they bring your food and they say, is everything great? Are you happy? And you say, absolutely, Rachel. Thank you. Yes, it is. So you're getting yourself in the habit, practicing at a restaurant and brightening up the server's day because you're remembering their name, which is important to them. But you're getting that muscle flexed a little bit more and more, and it becomes second nature. Now, what I tell people also is helpful for me is associating that person's name with someone else that I know that has the same name of Rachel. And if it's a very unique name, I might even ask the prospect to tell me the origin of it or how to spell it, and I'll ask, who named you that, and I'll repeat it back to them. So that's one way to do it. And then what I tell people all the time is, when you forget people's names, because it invariably will happen because we're human and sometimes the first name escapes us, is you just lean in mid-sentence and you say, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. Can you remind me? And you will not believe how much people will appreciate that you ask them mid-sentence, what was your first name again? I'm so sorry about that. Oh, your name is Jeff. Jeff, it's a pleasure to meet you, Jeff. I'm really bad with remembering names and I'm trying to do a better job of that. So thank you for understanding. So just being honest and open with people. But I think practicing at restaurants with servers is how you develop that muscle, first of all, to care what their first name is, and secondly, to repeat it back 3 times within the first 30 seconds. Those are my top techniques I use for remembering names.
That is great and so valuable, because it is something, like I said, I've done it and I think most people have. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course, yeah.
Well, this is awesome. Like I said from the beginning, this is such an important thing, and especially I feel it is right now, as we're not face to face as much, to understand the importance of it and to understand how to go about it and how to go about it effectively, and make your contacts, make the most out of your contacts. So thank you so much for that. Where can our listeners find out more about you, follow you, and all of those things?
I appreciate the conversation today. Again, it's a topic I'm really passionate about. My website's DerrickDickow.com. I've got a keynote presentation. I've got a workshop that's either half day or full day. And I do one-on-one executive coaching for people that want to take it to the top level. And we show them how to break down barriers to reach the top prospects on their list, the top mentors that they're trying to bring into their world, help them with revenue generation or to climb the corporate ladder. I really love what I do. I really enjoy working with my clients and making an impact. So I appreciate you having me on today. And Jeff, we'll do our best to share this with everyone in our network as well.
Yes, thank you. And I'll make sure to have all your links in the show notes so that those that want to reach out to you have a way to do that for sure. So thank you again. Appreciate you being with us and sharing all this knowledge.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on once again.